a bit over a week ago, my nephew passed away suddenly, and it was a big surprise for everybody. Most of all, his parents. My older brother, his father, has obviously been struggling. Um, my brother and I, we were pretty close age-wise. He's the oldest son, the oldest child of my mother. Um, we grew up in some of the same trenches with pretty similar external situations, and I have a lot of esteem for him. He's risen above a lot of the circumstances he was handed in life, but we're not terribly close. We don't have a whole ton to talk about, um, having taken very different paths in life. Um, so after another sibling let me know that this had happened, um, I struggled to think about what I could say, and I'll spare you that process, but I'm going to go into depth into the one from today because I think it illuminates some important principles. So this is what I wrote to him, which I chose to do via text instead of calling him. And all of those choices, I'll just summarize, were based around the greatest benefit he might be willing to receive. So I was trying to do the greatest good I could without triggering him in any way into some sort of a negative response, which that's why I preceded this by saying that I have a great deal of esteem for my older brother, because he's not a bad person. It's just that we have a lot of different perspectives, and I can't explain this in a way it's going to sound good, but we're good. Like, we're good. And it's just that there's a lot that if I were to just blurt it out, it'd be too much. It'd be too much. So, and it wouldn't be taken in the right way. And that's not a fault of his. It's just where we both are. And you probably understand. It's life. Okay, so this is what I wrote to him. I said, life is designed to present situations that reveal to us challenges beyond what we think we can bear. Though it be beyond the power of words to adequately address, I've carried enough to learn that there is sense in the senseless, strength in overwhelming inadequacy, and light in the darkness. No matter how it might seem, you are not alone. Please let me know if there is anything I can do for you. And he replied just by saying thank you. So here we are, sometime later, and I was thinking about him a lot this morning, and I was trying to find a connection between the love that I feel for him and what he might be able to receive. So as I started this, my heart just expanded as wide as eternity, so to speak. And as I was querying the Lord on what might be helpful for him, what came to my mind was saying something like, sometimes when we get hit with terrible surprises in life, they can be very helpful in exposing us to problems we didn't realize existed, or inadequacies in our beliefs, or limitations to our strength. In other words, they are valuable to suggest to us changes in how we are, how we think, how we believe, and how we act, so that we can be better prepared to contend with the difficulties that are ever present in life, even if they seem to be less intense or common than they actually are. Something like that. And That response would have demonstrated the greatest love that I could think of, because it contained in it the seeds of the greatest improvement, the greatest possible benefit he could extract, as far as I know, from this situation. But I didn't write that up and send it. And the reason is because I thought he wouldn't take it that way. He'd take it as being preachy or and minimizing his pain somehow. Because the assumption of all people is that when they're in intense suffering, that there's no way anyone else could possibly know what they're going through. Now, this is most harmful in our relationship with God. And there are many people who, when they suffer anything that's towards the top of their experience, they immediately presume that there's no way God could have any idea what they're going through. Of course, that's completely false. He suffered more than anyone can. So, because they don't believe that he could have done that, they don't find comfort in the fact that he did. This is true in cascading examples down to wherever we stand. And it's unfortunate because the costs to know these things, to say them, and to be able to say them sincerely is incredibly great. And even that supports the idea that the person who says it has gone through worse, because that's what it would take to be able to say such a thing. Now, unfortunately, these sorts of things, they occur against a backdrop of a lot of people speaking beyond their experience, and that is definitely the norm. Both in content and confidence, people exceed their experience. That's the norm in what they say. So that's unfortunate. But there are times when it's true, and it's very powerful to ask yourself, what would it take for someone to say what he or she just did in full sincerity and confidence? So I didn't say that. So I pivoted and I said, okay, let me pack up this love and see if I can take it down a notch and find a window that's capable of receipt, or find an expression that's capable of fitting in the window that's presented here. So then I thought, okay, what can I say that's not going to advise any change? Because that's really the rub. The greatest help you can give is to give someone a new option that they weren't thinking about, or to give them better reasons to consider a better option than they would have chosen. That is the greatest love you can give. So downshifting, perhaps the next best thing you could do is show them that you care, much more than they might think. And I thought, well, because you have to say what's true if you're going to be sincere. It's not like you're just sort of, I don't know, writing a story and you get to pick whatever you want to say. You have to choose from the options of what would be true as far as you understand. And so for me, I came up with the thought, well, I would literally do anything I could if it would somehow save him from having to go through this. So I thought of writing something like, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. If there was some way that I could go through it to spare you from it, I would. So people say things all the time like, oh, just so you know, I care, or I'm thinking of you, or whatever. And okay, fine. Like maybe you were thinking about the baseball game 3 minutes ago. Who cares that you're thinking of me? But to make a quantifiable statement about how much you care, that requires you to suffer, right? It requires you to take upon yourself burdens that aren't already upon you. And the Lord is the prime example of all of these things. I could have gone into that with the first version of this potential message. He is the demonstration of how to solve all of our problems, which is beautiful. And that is the greatest love. The second is that he obviously showed us that he preferred his own suffering to ours. And if we accept his sacrifice, then that's exactly what happens, is that we benefit from his suffering. With his stripes, we are healed. So, as I thought about whether or not I should send that message, that I would take his place if it would spare him from this, I thought where he is in life as a person, and with the intensity of pain he's feeling right now, I think it's beyond his capacity to believe that I'm telling the truth if I were to say that. And in that case, what is a tremendous expression of love would be regarded as something callous or trite, and it would have the opposite of the intended effect. And that's really sad. So I thought, okay, well, what else could I say? And as I stepped through any number of options, going further and further down in the scale, the hierarchy of love, demonstrated love, every time I came up with an idea, I thought, he's not going to take this in the way that I would hope. And finally, what I ended up with was just thinking of you. And why does this matter at all? Why am I bothering to share this with the world here? Well, how often do we impede the Lord in his desired demonstration of love? Because I promise you that we all have limits in what we're willing to perceive, receive, and value. And we come into the world with those limits. And one of the primary purposes of this life is for us to get rid of as many as we can and to squish them down, attenuate them as much as we possibly can. So it's worth thinking about what barriers you might have that impede God's expressions of love to you. Because if it's this difficult to communicate the comparably minor quantities of love that a mortal can feel for another mortal, imagine how difficult it must be for God to demonstrate his eternal love to us.